Today everything just felt a little too much. Loneliness had completely taken over inside me. Marco's obsession with work was just putting more and more distance between us every day. Lately, I've started to miss even the smallest interaction. I'm so lonely that whenever someone's around, even the smallest bit of attention feels amplified. So today, I wanted something to change. I wanted to go to his room, surprise Marco, maybe remind him that I actually need him. But I didn't even know if it was the right thing to do at the time. First, I thought I should get ready. I put on my black mini dress, picked my high heels, and carefully slid them on. I left my hair wavy and added a little red lipstick, making sure to highlight the backless dress. I needed a little confidence, maybe this change would actually catch Marco's attention. I knocked lightly on Marco's office door. There was nothing stopping me from walking in, but still, there was a hint of hesitation in my steps. That door symbolized his commitment to his work. As I stepped in, the silence of the office hit me. The only light was from the computer in the darkness, and with Marco not there, I noticed someone else in the room, Alex, Marco's best friend and work partner. Normally, I'd keep my distance from him outside of work stuff, but at that moment, my eyes just got stuck on Alex. He was sitting in a corner, focused on something. It was like he was aware of everything. As soon as I stepped into the room, he could read the whole situation. Alex's gaze shifted to me for a second. There was something there, I could feel that he'd picked up on something. The brief attention in his eyes suddenly made me feel vulnerable. In that moment, the emptiness inside me grew even more. The loneliness was so overwhelming that no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't stop myself from catching Alex's attention. "Laura," he said, his voice soft. "Marco's running a bit late." I was waiting to talk to him. I didn't respond, I just felt the tension in the room. My steps brought out something deeper in Alex's eyes. With each step closer, the space between us shrank as his eyes slowly turned toward me. I just let things play out like it was all planned from the start. "Are you alone?" he asked, his gaze catching me again. Just a question, but I couldn't quite grasp the meaning behind it. Answering that question showed me just how hard it really was. I was alone, both physically and emotionally. Marco's obsession with work was widening this gap between us, but I had no idea how to tell him that. The discomfort I felt walking into the room suddenly laid bare the emptiness inside Alex's gaze, like a spark igniting something in me. He noticed me, really noticed me. Feeling that helped me understand what I was feeling. I could see how Marco wasn't treating me, but Alex's attention was something else entirely. At that moment, I just thought maybe he was trying to get my attention, but his eyes were so deep I started questioning if that thought was even right. "Laura," he said again. This time his voice was softer and more meaningful. "I really wanted to see you, but Marco's work sometimes takes all of you, doesn't it?" When he looked into my eyes, he could see the deep traces of my loneliness, my emptiness, my lost self. In that sentence, right then, I could feel he recognized the void inside me. On one hand, it wasn't right, but on the other, the emptiness in that moment was almost like it was leaving all my feelings in Alex's hands. Alex took a step closer, and I felt his hand on my shoulder. Something inside me started to stir. The excitement I felt gave me a little jolt, but at the same time, it was tempting. The uncertainty in my eyes started fading under the warmth of his hand, but for a second, I thought being this close might be wrong. I pulled back and took a small step away. "What are you doing?" I said with a mix of fear and curiosity in my voice. "Alex, this is wrong." Alex just gave a slight smile, keeping his hand on my shoulder. "What's wrong about it, Laura?" he said, his voice soft but insistent. "Do you know how much attention Marco shows you? Or more like, does he even realize your worth?" For a second, a sharp pain shot through my heart. Yeah, I felt it too. Marco's lack of attention cut me deep, but Alex getting this close was only making my feelings more complicated. The way Alex showed interest in me was like he was filling in all the gaps Marco left empty. And with each passing second, this situation was only bringing us closer. With all my emotions getting tangled up, the weight of the silence was making it harder and harder to breathe. "Laura," Alex said, taking another step and leaning toward me. "You're lonely, aren't you?" "I feel it. But there's someone here who cares, who knows what you're worth." His voice was pulling me in even more. Every word just made the emptiness inside me deeper, but at the same time, the speed of this change and the closeness were scaring me. In that moment, my feelings started to push against each other. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. Then suddenly, Alex locked the door. The sound of the lock echoed in the room. My heart started pounding fast, caught in a mix of fear and excitement, but somehow I wanted to escape. I took a quick step back. "No, this is wrong," I said, but the shakiness in my voice mixed with my hesitation. "Running away," he said quietly. "Sometimes what you call the right thing can scare you, Laura." And right then, I just froze by that door. But there was this urge inside me. No matter how much I wanted to run, it was impossible not to get caught up in the pull of that moment. But in the end, in the midst of all the emotional chaos and tension, I left the room. In the days that followed, as I thought about this moment, my feelings kept growing all week long. In the shower, I thought of Alex, how strong and magnetic he was, the way he looked at me. Marco's indifference just left this emptiness. Every day, everything only got more complicated. One day, out of nowhere, I decided to go to Alex's place. I knocked on the door, and as soon as it opened, there he was, standing right there with his muscular frame. Not even waiting, just a few steps away, I felt that everything was about to take a different turn. As he opened the door, he stepped a little closer, saying, "Welcome." His voice was still soft, but there was something there, some meaning, some curiosity in his eyes. There was surprise and admiration, and he wasn't even trying to hide it. As I got lost in his gaze for a moment, I didn't know what I should do. "Were you expecting me?" I asked, hoping to ease up and break this strange tension just a bit. "Of course," he said with a slight smile, "but I was really looking forward to seeing you." He motioned me gently into the kitchen. As I stepped in, I could still feel his gaze on me. It was almost impossible to miss the interest and curiosity in his eyes. I took a few more steps into the kitchen, glancing at the photos on the wall. Memories of a few moments from the past flickered through my mind. I remembered that coffee we had together years ago, me, Marco, and Alex. Back then, Alex's smile and his attentive looks were all just friendly, at a time when everything was still good between Marco and me. Now everything was different between us. There was this silent tension. Without saying a word, Alex started moving around in the kitchen. He quickly grabbed a few ingredients and, without even asking, began making a caramel macchiato. In that moment, something stirred in me. This was the coffee I always loved during those yearly coffee dates with Marco, but Alex remembered that. I couldn't take my eyes off him. Feeling his attention, his curiosity, and the admiration he didn't even try to hide only made the loneliness I felt even deeper. As the smell of coffee filled the air, there was only one thought in my mind. After all these years, Alex was making me coffee so thoughtfully, so carefully. When he finished, he handed me the cup with a smile. "Here you go," he said, his voice soft, carrying a tone that meant something. "I hope it's just how you like it." As I took the cup, I smiled. This little gesture had a big effect on me. The coffee was just right, the sweetness of the caramel and the slight bitterness of the coffee were perfectly balanced. I took a sip, glancing away from him, but as with everything else, this only brought us a step closer. The emptiness inside me felt like it was being filled with this small thing. Alex was standing next to me in the same room, in the same atmosphere, and it was as if, after years, we were closer to each other. As I tried to focus on the mixed feelings inside me, Alex's voice echoed again in my ear. "Sometimes remembering something means actually understanding everything." His words resonated within me. I remembered that coffee moment from years ago, and for a second, I felt like time had stopped. Everything that had happened, the distance between us, this difference, this lack of attention was all more obvious. Alex's gaze didn't fade, it only grew stronger, with an expression that showed he was trying to understand me. Being this close, feeling his warmth and attention, both soothed me and made me feel even more lost in this complicated way. In that moment, I started connecting the coffee moments from the past to this very one. Back then, none of it held feelings like this. Now though, Alex standing so close and acting so attentive was bringing something else to the surface, and I could feel it. The look in Alex's eyes became clearer with each passing second. It was almost impossible to hide my excitement. On one hand, there was Alex, the friend I'd known for years, and on the other, there was this feeling I was experiencing in the moment. The taste of caramel macchiato was still on my lips, and everything was getting even more complicated. Feeling his attention was like a jolt of electricity. As Alex looked at me, he didn't say a word, but those silent looks said it all. On one side was his interest in me, and on the other, the emptiness inside me only growing deeper. When our eyes met, my heart started pounding. For a moment, I could feel that warmth, that tension, everything was changing slowly but sharply. Alex took a step closer, coming right up to me. Something inside me rose up, but I could only hesitate for a moment. Within seconds, he placed his hand on my shoulder. The warmth of his hands echoed through my body. My heart skipped a beat, and it only fueled my excitement. My eyes were stuck on Alex. When he placed his hand on my shoulder, it was like everything had shifted. He was so close, so attentive, that the swirl of emotions inside me just got deeper. "Laura," he said, his voice a bit softer, "sometimes it's hard to ignore what we feel, but I know I'm here for you, always." Those could have sounded like words between two friends who'd known each other for years, but what he was making me feel was totally different. Feeling him getting this close only lit that excitement in me even more. When he looked into my eyes, my heart felt like it was pounding in my throat. He took another step, and this time the space between us disappeared completely. We were side by side, so close that I could feel the warmth of our bodies mixing together. I could feel it, Alex was right there, his warm breath against my skin. This closeness for a moment really made me lose myself. "I felt like I needed to be here for you," he said, his voice a little lower as he slowly slid his hand down from my shoulder to my waist. A spark shot through me, my heart was pounding so hard that all I could focus on was him. This urge inside me was growing strangely stronger. Him being this close, all that attention he was giving me, was making me feel like I was about to lose control. I tried to look away but I couldn't. He was so close, so real. Ness was all that mattered. I could only feel his gaze, the touch of his hand. My whole world in that moment was just us. The depth in Alex's voice took everything to a whole other level. For a second, I felt like everything was moving fast, like time had just stopped. The uncertainty in my eyes was completely gone with him this close. The emptiness inside me was disappearing in his warmth, all my tangled feelings coming together in that one point, making sure I felt it. He said softly, "Laura," his voice almost a whisper. For a moment, he was trying to read everything inside me through my eyes. That moment, that warm moment, as I felt the excitement inside me, I started to lose myself. My whole self just existing in that moment. But then a thought of pulling back flashed through my mind. A part of me wanted to resist this closeness, but it vanished just as quickly. What should I do? What was happening? Fear and desire clashed together. I pulled my hand away, but right then, feeling so many hard and tangled emotions, nothing felt right. Alex took a deep breath and said, "You have no idea how long I've been waiting for this." With a bit more seriousness, the warmth in his voice left me even more defenseless. He put his hands on my waist again, and as I felt the warmth from his hands, my whole body tensed up even more. And right there, that moment was just a mess of not knowing what to do, a moment where everything was so incredibly tangled up.